There is a specific silence found only in the rooms we decided not to inhabit. You might have been the person who stayed in that coastal town, waking to the smell of salt and the sound of a harbor that now only exists in the periphery of your dreams. That version of you has a different morning routine, a different set of keys, and a different reflection in the hallway mirror. They are living a life that was once yours to claim, moving through a geography of streets you chose to never walk again. It is not a haunting in the traditional sense, but a structural vacancy in the architecture of your current identity. We are defined as much by the doors we closed as the ones we walked through, leaving behind a trail of shadows that look exactly like us, breathing air we decided was no longer ours to breathe. Think of the career you abandoned in your 20s, the one that required a ruthlessness you weren't sure you possessed. Somewhere, in a parallel chronology of choices, you are sitting in a glass-walled office at 9:00 p.m., watching the city lights flicker while you sign documents that dictate the flow of millions. That version of you wears more expensive fabric and speaks with a sharper cadence. They don't wonder about the creative life you chose instead. They don't have the time for such sentimentality. They are the result of a single yes where you uttered a no hey. They are successful perhaps, but they are also a stranger. You share a name and a blood type, but the eyes in their head see a completely different horizon, one where the stakes are higher and the air is much thinner. The child who was never born exists in a peculiar state of non-being. There was a month, a week, a single afternoon where the trajectory of your biology could have shifted toward a legacy. Now, there is only a quiet afternoon in a house that doesn't echo with footsteps. You look at a playground and feel a phantom tug on your sleeve, a glitch in the emotional matrix. This unformed person is the ultimate alternate, a consciousness that was almost summoned but remains tucked away in the realm of the potential. They do not have a face, yet they have a weight. They represent the ultimate divergence, the path where your DNA branched off into a future that simply stopped before it began, leaving you to walk the remaining miles in a solitude you didn't quite negotiate. We carry the geography of our unlived lives like a hidden map. There is a city in another hemisphere where you were supposed to move for love. You can still visualize the layout of the apartment you scouted online, the way the light would have hit the floorboards at 4 in the afternoon. You never bought the plane ticket. Now, someone else lives there, sleeping in the space where your body was meant to rest. You stayed behind for a reason that seemed vital at the time, but has since faded into the background noise of history. The version of you that moved speaks a language you never learned and knows the shortcuts through streets you will never see. They are a ghost of migration, a permanent resident of a place that exists for you only as a flickering tab in a browser window. The person you would have become if you hadn't gotten sober is a terrifying, vivid specter. They are leaning against a brick wall in the rain, eyes clouded by the same desires that once pinned you to the floor. This version of you didn't find the breaking point. They simply kept breaking. They inhabit the dive bars and the emergency rooms you managed to escape. To look at them is to look into a mirror that has been shattered and glued back together incorrectly. They represent the gravity of addiction, the downward pull that you fought against until your muscles burned. They are still out there in the dark, repeating the same mistakes, trapped in a loop of chemical necessity. They are the dark matter of your recovery, the heavy, invisible presence that makes your current stability feel both miraculous and incredibly fragile. Every hobby we let die is a discarded version of the self. The piano gathers dust in a basement, representing the musician who is too tired to practice after work. The half-finished canvas in the attic is the vision of an artist who surrendered to the safety of a steady paycheck. These are not just failed interests, they are amputated identities. When you see a performer on stage, there is a small, sharp pain in your chest, a recognition of a lost frequency. You are a cemetery of abandoned talents, a collection of could-haves that sits silently in the dark. We tell ourselves we didn't have the time, but the truth is we chose to spend our minutes elsewhere, effectively killing the virtuoso to sustain the employee. The music that version of you would have played remains uncomposed, vibrating in a void. Consider the version of you that didn't survive the accident. The split second where the tires gripped instead of sliding, or the moment the debris missed your temple by an inch. In that reality, your story ended on a mundane Tuesday. The people you love went through the rituals of grief, and your belongings were packed into cardboard boxes. You are currently living in the extra time of a timeline that could have easily folded. This creates a strange, detached perspective, a feeling that you are a guest in your own life. The version of you that died is the most silent of all, a static image in a frame, frozen at an age you have already surpassed. You are walking through a world that, in another version of events, has already learned to exist without the sound of your voice. There is a version of you that stayed with your first love. You are living in a modest house in the suburbs, perhaps, bound by the comfortable, suffocating familiarity of someone who has known you since you were 18. That version of you never experienced the jagged edges of the breakups that followed. But they also never felt the electric thrill of starting over. They are settled in a way that feels like a slow-motion burial. When you see an old photo, you aren't looking at a memory. You are looking at a fork in the road. That version of you is still there, holding hands in a movie theater, unaware of the vast, lonely, and beautiful world you discovered, because you chose to leave. They are the personification of good enough, living a life of quiet contentment that you traded for a chance at something more. The version of you that grew up with money is a different species entirely. If a single investment by a grandparent had gone differently, your relationship with the world would be fundamentalist, based on the assumption of safety. That person doesn't understand the specific anxiety of a declining bank balance or the calculated math of a grocery store aisle. Their confidence is built into their bones, a byproduct of a life without friction. You watch them from across the street, noting the way they carry their shoulders, the way they speak to waiters, the way they occupy space without apology. You are the same person, genetically, but the environment has carved different features into your psyche. They are the polished stone. You are the one with the rough edges, shaped by the grit of necessity and the constant, low-level hum of survival. We are haunted by the version of ourselves that was brave when we were cowards. The time you didn't speak up when someone was being wronged, or the moment you stayed silent instead of confessing your true feelings. That alternate self said the words. They took the risk and dealt with the fallout. They carry a scar you don't have, but they also breathe a clarity you will never know. You are left with the lingering taste of the unsaid, a psychic weight that settles in the back of your throat. That courageous version of you moved into a future defined by honesty, while you remained in a present constructed from convenient silences. Every time you hesitate now, you are reminded of that shadow self, the one who stepped forward while you stepped back into the safety of the crowd. The academic version of you stayed in the library. They finished the PhD, moved to a cold university town, and dedicated their life to the study of something incredibly specific. A rare butterfly, a dead language, a niche period of architectural history. They spend their days in the company of books and the smell of old paper. Their social circle is small, intellectual, and slightly detached from the visceral reality of the marketplace. You chose the world of action, of deadlines, and of tangible results. But sometimes, when you are overwhelmed by the noise of the modern world, you feel the pull of that quiet office. You wonder what it would be like to have a mind that is a deep well instead of a wide, shallow river. That scholar is still there, reading by a lamp, blissfully unaware of the chaos you navigate daily. There is a version of you that is much more religious than you are now. They find a profound, unwavering comfort in the rituals you discarded years ago. For them, the world is an ordered place, governed by a divine logic that shields them from the existential dread of the void. They wake up with a sense of purpose that you have to manually manufacture every morning. You look at the cathedrals and temples they inhabit with a mixture of envy and alienation. That version of you sees signs in the clouds and meaning in the tragedies. They are never truly alone. You, however, opted for the cold clarity of the unknown. You are the version that walked out into the rain and realized there was no one holding the umbrella. You are freer, perhaps, but they are warmer, wrapped in the thick, ancient quilt of certainty. Imagine the version of you that never left your hometown. You are a fixture of the local landscape, someone whose history is written into the very pavement of the main street. You know the lineage of every family and the secret flaws of every building. Your world is small, circular, and deeply rooted. You never had to explain where you came from because everyone was there when it happened. That version of you has a different accent and a different set of prejudices. They are sheltered by the familiar, protected from the brutal anonymity of the big city. You, the one who left, are a ghost to them. A name mentioned occasionally at a holiday dinner, a cautionary tale about the dangers of ambition. They are the anchor. You are the ship that lost its way and forgot how to find the harbor. The version of you that is an athlete is a machine of discipline. They didn't hit the snooze button on those cold February mornings. They pushed through the pain that made you quit the varsity team or give up the marathon training. Their body is a testament to a decade of yes. When you look in the mirror, you see the softness of your compromises, the drinks, the late nights, the hours spent sitting at a desk. The athlete version of you has a resting heart rate that is a slow, steady pulse of victory. They inhabit a physical reality that feels alien to you, one of endurance and explosive power. They are the personification of your lost potential, the physical manifestation of what happens when you refuse to listen to the part of your brain that begs for comfort. Consider the version of you that is a parent in a different country. You met a traveler, followed them home, and now your children speak a language you can barely navigate. Their holidays are different. Their food is different. Their very concept of home is tied to a land you only visited once in this timeline. That life is a vibrant, chaotic tapestry of cultural blending that you bypassed because you were afraid of the paperwork or the distance. Now, you live a life of domestic familiarity, while that other self is navigating a foreign supermarket, trying to remember the word for cinnamon. They are an explorer of the mundane, building a legacy in a place that will never appear on your tax returns. They are the ultimate what if, a complete reimagining of your genetic future. There is a version of you that is much more cynical. They were betrayed by the person you decided to trust, and that single event curdled their outlook on humanity. They don't take risks on people. They don't believe in the inherent goodness of the stranger. They are safe, shielded by a thick layer of skepticism, but they are also profoundly isolated. You, the version that chose to remain vulnerable, have been hurt, but you haven't been hardened. You look at that cynical self and see a fortress with no doors. They are the result of a path where self-protection became the only priority. They haven't lost anything because they never put anything on the table. You are the gambler who lost a few rounds. They are the one who refused to play and spent the night watching the clock. The version of you that became a famous success is currently being interviewed on a stage. They are charismatic, polished, and have learned how to turn their vulnerabilities into marketable anecdotes. They have everything you ever wanted, but they have also lost the ability to be invisible. Every move they make is scrutinized. Every failure is public. You watch them from the safety of your living room, feeling a strange mixture of jealousy and relief. You have the privacy they sacrificed. You can walk down the street without being recognized, a luxury they will never again enjoy. That version of you is a monument to ambition, but like all monuments, they are fixed in place, unable to change without a headline. You are the fluid, messy, private reality that they can only remember in their quietest moments. The version of you that followed your artistic impulses to the point of poverty is currently living in a studio with a leaking ceiling. They are hungry, stressed, and constantly worried about the next month's rent. But their work, the work you gave up to become a professional, is breathtaking. They have achieved a level of mastery that you can only dream of because they gave everything to the craft. You have the mortgage, the health insurance, and the retirement fund. You have the security that they lack, but you also have the nagging suspicion that you sold your soul for a comfortable chair. That starving artist version of you is the keeper of your original fire, the one who stayed in the cold to keep the flame alive while you moved inside to the central heating. Every person we didn't marry is a house we never lived in. There is a version of you who is currently arguing about the laundry with someone you haven't spoken to in 10 years. That life has its own rhythm, its own inside jokes, and its own specific brand of misery and joy. You are not that person anymore, but the potential for that life remains etched in your history like a fossil. When you run into them by accident, for a split second, the two timelines collide. You see the person you were through their eyes, and you catch a glimpse of the life you narrowly avoided. It is a dizzying moment of temporal vertigo, a reminder that your current partner is just one of many possible protagonists in the story of your heart. Ultimately, we are the survivors of our own possibilities. The version of you that is reading this is the only one that actually exists in the material world, yet you are built from the debris of all the selves you rejected. We walk through our days accompanied by a silent crowd of alternates. The doctors, the addicts, the parents, the wanderers. They don't speak, but they influence our movements, their absence creating the negative space that defines our presence. There is no resolution to this, no way to merge the timelines or apologize to the people we didn't become. We simply continue, a single line of ink moving across a page that could have been filled with 1,000 different sentences, wondering if the version of us that almost happened is somewhere, wondering about us.